Hey guys, so today we're going to rebuild a fan. I've got a 1990-ish Ford Taurus 2-speed fan with shroud in here, but probably what I'm going to do will apply to any fan that gets loose. And what happened is I started hearing a noise, so I reached in and I could shake the fan as if bearings were gone in it. So I'm going to show you how to take it apart, and if you're more interested in how to make this work in a TJ, I can do another video on that, but in the meantime we're just going to fix the motor because it's a 1990 fan. It's been in my Jeep for 20 years now and it just basically wore out. But I try and keep everything fairly clean, fairly factory, and that's how it works. So on to the video. Being an electric fan setup, the first thing I'm going to do is unplug the power wires. And then I'm going to undo the ground for the fans. Next, we're going to undo the two bolts that hold the passenger side of the shroud. And then, using a screwdriver, we're going to pry the little nub holding the coolant reservoir in place and remove that. Now I'm going to undo the bolts to the piece of the factory shroud that I used to hold the coolant bottle in place. The Taurus fan itself isn't equipped with bolt holes on this side, so I drilled little holes in the factory fan shroud and used small screws just to hold that side in place. With all the mounting points undone, it's time to pull the rad fan and shroud out as one piece. With the fan on the bench, I proceeded to lift the locking tab and gently tap it off. A few light taps on the shaft and the fan slides right off. Time to dig in and see what's wrong with this motor that's making it so loose. It's only 3 bolts that hold it together. They're long, but they're only 8 millimeters, so be careful. They might be seized and you don't want to break them. I took the motor apart. And this is what I've got. It's a 2-speed motor, which is kind of interesting. You got a set of brushes in here, but there's also a set of brushes that this would sit down in here, and these brushes ride in here to give you your second speed. My problem with it is this. When I measure it, the fan was moving and rubbing. When I measure it, that's 11/30 seconds, and I make this hole. You can see it's 13/30 seconds, so I got a 16th of an inch of play that I got to try and take up so that the fan doesn't move. Couldn't find a motor anywhere local, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make one of these actually work. These are just bronze bushings, self-lubricating. The easiest way to get that bushing in was to drill out the housing of the motor for the outside diameter of the bushing. So that's what I started with. And then to get the inside diameter correct to the shaft, I put it on the drill press so it would stay accurate. Lastly, I had to cut it to length. Finally, with the bushing finished, I pushed it in place. And then I test fit the shaft to make sure that it actually fit. I'm going to line this up right here. Put 3 bolts in through. They get a square end on them, so that'll pull them right in. Looks good. So, 2 springs went under these. I'm using flat screwdrivers on the brush wires to hold them in place against the spring while I actually feed this onto the shaft. With everything in place, you just need to put the 8mm nuts on the bolts and snug everything down. And the last one. I gotta figure out, that goes like that, clock it so my wire is in the right spot, which is right there. I tightened the 4 bolts holding the motor to the fan shroud and then turned it over so I could mount the fan itself. Flip it over. Turn this to align so I can get it lined up right. Put the fan on, mount the retaining clip, and it's ready to go back in the Jeep. Start the passenger side bolts as they line up exactly with the shroud, and then you can move over and do the other side. With the other side, I cut the original shroud to give me a mount for the coolant bottle and used 2 screws to hold the fan shroud in place. The piece of the factory shroud that used to hold the coolant bottle has been cut so that it still has the original bolt holes to bolt into the radiator. So you bolt that back on and then you remount the coolant bottle in the factory location. Remount the ground for the fans and then plug it back in, and everything should be good to go. So there you go. You can see it's all back in place, or as best as you can see. And it's kind of an old school idea, you know, scavenging parts from the junkyard basically, back when this thing was new and built 20 some years ago. Now you may have all these newfangled fans and stuff and shrouds that you can buy pre-bought. This was the best option at the time to get a 2-speed fan. Never let me down. Even when it was moving around, it just made noise, but I knew I had to fix it before it got worse. And it's always cooled. I've got a position for automatic, which is low speed. If it ever got warm, sometimes I've been stupid because I've got a 3-position switch and I shut it off for water so it doesn't spray water all over the engine. Sometimes I've actually forgot to turn that back on, so I've used the high speed, but really the high speed is almost never used in this. So it's an excellent option. If you want to know more about it, like I said earlier, I can put a video out on how to do it. Thanks for watching.